All right, good morning, e-learners.
Morning, e-learners. Morning, e-learners. Did you guys sleep good? I hope you guys slept good. If you didn't, there's some good tips online to help you sleep.
Hopefully better than I
Knock
did.
yourself out in the fan.
Aromatherapy, Tristan?
What?
Aromatherapy.
Yes, actually.
Don't have lit candles next to your bed. That's dangerous. Okay, let's get going here. Any questions on the homework, which were basically draw number lines, a bunch of them.
What is the meaning of life?
42.
Really?
Meaning of life is 42.
Google it. 42.
That's the meaning of life.
42 years.
Because that's what 8 times 7 is.
That's the meaning of life.
You don't get what I just said?
No, I don't. But
There's a famous book
I remember the story.
called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and supposedly it's a quest for finding the meaning of life. One of the things it's about.
They never actually.
He goes to, I'm not sure if he actually goes to God or he goes to a supercomputer, something like that. One of the two. And the guy in the supercomputer says, well, the answer is 42. And he goes, what? He goes, well, what's more important is the question. I'm not sure if it's 8 times 7, but something that we
They
know
didn't
not
ask
to
the
avoid.
right question.
Where's the pencil sharpener?
It is. That's the whole point of the thing, is that the meaning of life is we think that 6 times 7 is 42, but 22 is less. All right. All right. Sorry for getting us off track. Let's close our mouths. Let's get to learning here. All right. Any math questions on the homework, which was lesson 1.8?
Can you solve pi?
Okay. There's no such thing as solving pi.
Simplifying pi.
Sure, 3. I just rounded. Okay. Julia's a question about math. Go for it. No, let's not get too far off task.
Where's the pencil sharpener?
Okay, it's over there. Extra printer. Here we go. Quiet, please. So there are two things, guys. Hey, time out. Time out. There's a fine line between, being rude and just getting yourself under control. And you guys are kind of being rude right there. So maybe the second time, we're a little bit rowdy. I'm not going to say anything, but certainly by the 4th time that I ask you to be quiet. Thank you. All right. So the first couple ones are just, it's straight up. You're going to read something. It's called directional numbers. I'm going to do these very quickly. 5 steps down would be -5. That's number 1. Number 2. Even? Sorry. Number 2. 2 rooms to the right. Well, we think of the right as a number line as positive numbers, so that would be +2. Number 3. Above sea level would be 190. I'm sorry.
Wait.
I'm all messed up.
Mr. Shorty,
Yes.
I thought it was supposed to be 2, -2, and then 2 rooms to the left.
So it says write a number to represent the situation, then write the opposite of that number. So Josie is correct. So 2 rooms to the right would be 2, and the opposite of 2 is -2. Thank you for correcting. Number 4, let's see if I can get on track here. 9 degrees below freezing would be -9. The opposite of -9 is +9.
What did you just do?
Yeah, then you're like me, and you have to wait on a student to correct you that you did it wrong.
Do I circle it wrong?
No, but what's the opposite of 5?
-5?
What's the opposite of -2? That's why I'm not worried that you didn't write the other half of the answer. All right, here we go. Number, what are we on?
6.
6. -4 is the answer. The opposite of -4 is 4. Number 8. North is 41. Opposite of 41 is -41. Number 10. If you withdraw, you're taking money out. Now, this is the one that people will argue with. Hey, I just got 25 bucks in my pocket. That's a plus for me. But your bank account would think that as you're subtracting 25. Opposite of -25 is +25. Bonus points. Oh, that's just positive. And the opposite would be -3. 10 pounds lost. That would be -10. The opposite is +10. Number 16. -11 is less than -1. So now they're asking you to put 2 numbers and use your inequalities, your math gain symbols. All right. Now, it didn't tell you how to write the numbers. I will just say the opening of the inequality needs to point to the opening, which in this case would be -1. On number 18, the bigger number is 10. That's what the opening should face. Now, like I said, you can write it two ways. 10 is greater than 7 or 7 is less than 10. Either one would be correct. Number 20, the opening would point towards 0. 0 is absolutely bigger than -0.3. And number 22, all right, fractions are always a troublesome point for most of us, okay? How do you compare fractions? How do you really compare fractions? What must you get? In order to truly compare two fractions, what must you have? I got to get a common denominator, right? So the common denominator of 8 and 7 is 56, right? So you would get what? You would get 756, and the other one would be 856. The 756 would go with the 1/8, right? And the 856 would go with the 1/7.
What number are we on?
22. So it
Oh,
turns
okay.
out that 1/7 is bigger than 1/8. All right, I will look at your number lines, but number 24, those would be, they gave you two values, -5 and 4. That would be the letters M and V.
Yeah.
Number 26, those would be the letters A and G. Number 28, H, D, B. Number 30, S, Z, Y. I will grade all the way through 38, so we're going to pick it up on 40. Look at me, greater than symbol. We read from left to right. Opening comes before the point, so greater than. Number 32, I'm sorry, 32. Number 42 is greater than as well. Number 44 is this one, less than. As I go from left to right, I come to the point before the opening. That's the less than symbol. Number 46 is also less than, and that's all she wrote. Okay, now time to, yes. No, you guys, you did it right. You did it right. I know I said I'm gonna look at your number line, but we're okay. All right, make sure your names are on them. You have how many you missed, and he's going to pass out the worksheets and collect your homework at the same time. Let's see if you can do it. Oh no, he's picking up his partner. Okay. All right. Oh, while they're doing that, please look at the calendar, please. So we are on Wednesday. We will do the last section of the chapter 1 today. And then we will do a chapter review tomorrow, test on Friday. E-learners, you will get your test. Sunday night is when I will send out the email.
Sunday, why did they do it in the weekend? Why are we gonna do it on
Their weekend isn't Saturday, Sunday. Your weekend is.
The computer is a little delayed.
Their weekend is Friday, Saturday. Yours is Saturday, Sunday.
Really weird.
Because I can't live send them stuff. So the kids that can't Zoom right now, they have to wait until this evening about 8 o'clock when I get it all done to send them to class. All right, homework is on the board. Please copy it down.
I did do it. Okay, this is the first time I've done that. Should this be easy homework this year?
It depends if you know absolute value or not. If you know absolute value, I would agree today would be easy. If it's a new concept for you, then it's not hard, but you're going to have to pay attention. Okay, let's go back to silence. Pay attention. So the question when she said, was today an easy day or a hard day? And I said, well, it depends if you know what an absolute value is. If you remember absolute value from pre-algebra, then today is an easy day. If you don't, then I'm going to have to teach this to you. But in the big scheme of things, it's probably on the lower end of the challenging scale. So I mean, it should be fairly easy.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Opposites and absolute values. Now, last class, if you notice, the first 10 or so questions were give me a number and its opposite. Not a single person complained, kind of intuitive what an opposite is. Just be careful, an opposite is not an absolute value, Chris. An opposite is not an absolute value, an absolute value is not an opposite. Here we go. New vocabulary. Box 1. Write this down, please. There's 3 boxes, right? So the first one is here. There's going to be 3 definitions here. In the first box, put opposites. Those are numbers that are the same distance away from 0. There are numbers that happen to be the same distance away from 0. We call them opposite numbers. How far is 10 away from 0?
10.
Okay, is there another number that's also 10 away from 0? Negative 10. It's kind of intuitive, right? Round, put the calculator away. So, if you need some examples, the opposite of 5 is, because 5 is 5 units away from 0, what so is negative 5? So the first definition is opposites. Second definition, well, the numbers that we'll be dealing with yesterday and today are called integers. So let's see if we can define. Integers are those natural caveman, cavewoman, cave kid numbers, right? They're opposites. So cave person didn't have -2, but he did have 2. And the opposite of 2 is -2. So the natural numbers, they're opposites, and we throw in 0. 0 does not have an opposite, because 0 is 0 away from 0. There is no other number that's 0 away from 0 other than 0. Those are called the integers. If we talk about sets from yesterday's class, this is a pretty large bag, right? This bag of integers does not, however, include, what numbers are we missing?
Fractions.
Fractions and decimals, rational numbers and irrational numbers. Okay, there are also a couple other numbers we're missing that you will learn this year called imaginary numbers. Right? We will at least be introduced to that concept. By the time you get to Algebra 2, geometry does not deal with imaginary numbers. Algebra 2 does deal with imaginary numbers. Because what's the square root of -9? I don't know. Your calculator blows up if you try to do the square root of -9. It says error. White smoke comes out of it. Turns out that there actually is an answer to that, and that's what you learn about later on this year in Algebra 2. All right, the last thing in box, oh, by the way, so we have the natural numbers, right? Once counting numbers, right? They're opposites, right? And then we throw in 0, and those are the integers. Okay, the last one in box 1, that's what we're doing today. We're doing this thing called absolute value. Absolute value is not what number is also the same distance away from 0, but it kind of sounds like it. It says a number's distance from 0. And so a lot of students, I understand why, confuse it with opposites. An absolute value is not an opposite. It's simply how far is the number away from 0. You take any number and you ask yourself, how far is that number away from 0? That is what's called, or the answer to that is what's called an absolute value. Now, those of you that had me last year, right, when we did positive and negative numbers is when we kind of used absolute value. This year we will use absolute value more than that. There's 2 specific times when we'll be using absolute value. There's a symbol for absolute value. What is it? Right? 2 vertical line segments, right? So these things that kind of sort of look like parentheses, but they're not rounded. By PEMDAS operations, they act like parentheses. They are not parentheses. They are absolute value symbols. These 2 vertical lines are the absolute, segments, sorry, are the absolute value symbol. And when you see that symbol, it's asking you to look on the inside and state how far are you away from 0. On the inside, how far are you away from 0? Now you must be careful. You'll see here in a second. There can be more than one number. There can be math on the inside. So when you go on the inside of absolute value, you must follow PEMDAS rules. There could be parentheses as well too. But you must do the math inside first before you state how far are you away from 0. We'll do some examples. We okay for box number 1? Okay. Oh, by the way, how far is -5 away from 0?
5.
So the answer to the absolute value of -5 is 5. Hey, remember I said we will no longer put negative symbols above. It's always going to be in the middle. Okay, so opposites. Now I'm going to confuse you because I'm going to go back to this thing called opposites. Julie, what's the opposite of -5? Okay, pretty simple, right? Notice that when we take an opposite, it changes from negative to, what's the opposite of 5?
Negative 5.
Notice when we take an opposite, it does flip-flop signs. Guess what happens when you do absolute value? The answer to absolute value will always be positive. Why? Because remember, absolute value asks how far are you away from 0. That answer will always be a positive number. So negative 5, right? The opposite is 5. Okay? This one right here, right? How do we read this, by the way? How do you read that?
The opposite of negative 3.
Okay, you can always read negative as opposite, but there's lots of ways to read this. I can think of at least 3 ways to read this. This could be subtract negative 3, yes? We could also say the opposite of negative 3. We can also say the opposite of subtract 3. There might even be more. But we have lots of words now we can use for this symbol to include negative, to include subtract, to include the opposite. Okay? The opposite of negative 3 is generally, or subtract negative 3 is generally how it's stated. Okay. Oh, by the way, what's the opposite of negative 3? So when 2 negatives are next to each other, guess what happens?
Positive.
Turns positive. Okay. Good. What I just said. All right. When 2 negatives are next to each other, guess what happens? When 2 negatives are next to each other, I didn't say this. I didn't say negative 4 minus 3. Are the negatives next to each other? They're not next to each other, right? But when the 2 negatives are next to each other, right, then it turns positive. So the answer is 4, the opposite of negative 3. 4, the opposite of negative 3 is 3, so 4 plus 3 is 7. Wow, that's crazy. But you should know that from last year in pre-algebra. Okay. Notice once again, 2 negatives next to each other turns to a positive. Look at that thing right there. They're just trying to confuse you. What did I literally just say in my last statement? When 2 negatives are next to each other, you get, so this is 6 plus, or positive 3, right? So the opposite of negative 3, right, is positive 3. So this is really 6 plus 3. That's a crazy way of writing 6 plus 3. And it's not that they're trying to confuse you with a whole bunch of symbols when it really is just 6 plus 3. It's that in algebra, this type of, expression right here, you will see often with variables. All right, do these, please. Box 2. I'll give you a 5-second head start, and then I'll talk you through it. For those of you with calculators in your hand, I'm not sure what you're doing. If you're using it to check your work after you're done, absolutely. But if you're using it to do your work, that's unacceptable. Let's not do that. All right, let's see. By PEMDAS says we need to do what's inside the parentheses first. 7 plus 5 is 12. We could read subtract 12 or negative 12 or the opposite of 12. Any one of those would be the correct answer.
Wait, second to this?
I'm sorry?
No. Yeah.
Now, I'll just say most people, because opposite's a really long word, most people just say negative 12. Well, negative's pretty long too, I agree. All right, the second, we said when 2 negatives are next to each other, that turns into
Positive.
So this is really 9 plus 10. Well, that's just 19. We okay? Tonight for homework, you'll have not a lot of these, but you'll have a few of these. Use that key right there that if 2 negatives are next to each other, it turns to a positive to your benefit.
There's a lot of those.
Secondly, for those of you, Lane, I'm having a calculator. Secondly, for those of you that do choose to check your work, all right, Texas Instrument, right, great calculator, has one small thing you got to be aware of, right? There's 2 symbols down here for your operations that look like subtract. One is literally a subtraction symbol. See where my finger is, index finger? And then way right here, it looks like to be like another subtraction symbol. It's white, right? So the white one with parentheses is actually called, who knows, it's called the negative button. So here's how you use your calculator. If you try to use the negative button, even though mathematically it would be fine, if I try to say 5 and a -3, I just hit the negative button instead of subtraction button. I just said that the negative and subtraction are the same, and you hit enter, your calculator says error. This is a Texas Instrument thing. So technically what you need to do is this. You can use the negative key anytime you want, but it better have another symbol next to it, especially when the negative is the first number. So if I have a -4, -3, we haven't talked, by the way, what's the answer? You guys have had pre-algebra before. What's -4 minus 3? -7, right? Signs are the same, you add two numbers, right? When the first number that you're entering into your calculator is negative, guess what you must use? You got to use the negative key. If I use the subtraction key, looks like a subtraction. Mr. C said it is subtraction, right? And I write -4 minus 3 and hit enter, right? Let me do that again. -4 minus 3, right? Guess what it says? 417. This is a Texas Instruments thing. If you hit any one of these keys over here, right, it assumes what you want to do is take the answer to your previous problem, and I don't know, I hit the subtraction button, and subtract it from it. So you got to be really careful when you do this. Tonight for homework, if you were trying to type this in right here, what does that symbol look like? If I press the minus key right here, and then put a parenthesis and put 7 plus 5, we all know the answer is -12. The calculator says the answer is 405. So for a and it's a Texas Instrument thing. If the first thing that you're typing in, is that symbol, guess what you must use? You got to use the negative key. So if I use the negative key now, and then do a parentheses and do 7 plus 5, close the parentheses. Now it says -12, the answer we're looking for. This is a Texas Instrument thing. You have this one right here. Remember, these are just parentheses. If negative is not the first thing, then I can hit the subtraction key. So negative, parentheses, -9, close the parentheses twice, plus 10, right? Once again, what's it say? Error. If the first thing is that symbol, you got to use the negative key. If the first thing. The second thing is there, well, you can hit the minus key and you'll be good to go. But if the first thing is a minus, you have to use the negative key. You will see this as you play more around with your, did you give me this cover? Or did I lose it?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay. All right. So there's your segue into the details of the Texas Instrument calculator, which throughout the year, you'll be using our calculator. Today's not one of them. We can use it to check our work, but you're going to see. All right. On absolute value. So absolute value, those are the symbols for absolute value. All right. I'm sorry. Grab your calculators again. I need to show you where the absolute value symbol is. Ready? Okay. I said they act like parentheses, but they're not parentheses. So turn your calculators on. You can find, anybody already know where you can find the absolute value symbol?
No.
No. Hit the math button. Right where my finger is. Math. It says math. Right? Scroll over using my arrow keys. 1. What's the first thing it says? ABS. Wouldn't it be nice if they actually gave you the symbol? They don't. So they use ABS. Hit the enter key. And then there are absolute value symbols. I still think they should have gave you the symbols. That's how you find the absolute value. So let's type in a number. Let's type in, use the negative key, -10. What's the absolute value of -10? It better be 10. I hit enter, and it says the answer is 10. Now, for those of you, this is the first time ever actually using this calculator, look at my screen. It's full of stuff, right? It's full of stuff. Does anybody have a TI-83? All right, if you have a TI, that's 84. You have a TI-83, your calculator does not do this. It has a small amount of memory. But all TI-84s do this. If you did calculations, which we will do this year, and you're doing 10 of them, and then you need to go back, and you need to see what that calculation is, look at me, you just hit the up arrow key, and notice it will scroll through all the calculations that you have done. If you highlight one of them, I'm highlighting just the up arrow. I'm highlighting this one right here. Maybe I need to do that one again. If I hit enter, it re-enters that calculation, so I don't need to type it again. You're like, well, why would I ever do that? When you're entering 10 things, which you will in science class, right, this year, in biology, when you start doing some stuff, you may want to not type it in 10 times again because the problem is done over and over and over again. You can use the arrow key. And then other times when you mess up, right, you hit the clear button. Watch me. What's my screen now say? No, I'm saying what's on the screen? Nothing, except that I didn't really clear it. If I hit the up arrow, there it is again. Clear just clears the screen. It doesn't delete stuff. On a TI-83, it does delete stuff. Okay. Enough of calculator. Let's talk about absolute value. So those are the absolute value. This arrow right here means the following. It means whatever's on the inside, we're going to calculate how far you are away from 0. So always remember what's on the inside. You're asked the question how far it is away from 0. We good? You guys paying attention? Okay. So some quick examples. Duh. How far is negative 10 away from 0? Okay. 10. This is where I typically lose, not most students, but a few. Look up here. Doesn't this look like we just write the opposite? Okay. What's the absolute value of 7?
7.
How far is, remember the question says, how far is 7 away from 0?
7.
So did I just write the opposite?
No.
I didn't. Absolute value is not the opposite. Go back and cut this slide. This is the one time it looks like I'm writing the opposite. I'm not. I'm still asking how far is negative 10 away from 0. It's 10. But as soon as what's on the inside is positive, I still get a positive answer. It's not the opposite. Are you hearing that? The answer to all absolute value problems will be positive. The answer to all absolute value expressions will be positive with one exception. And I'll show you here in a couple minutes. Okay. Boy, this must be important because now I even have a slide that says it. Absolute value does not mean opposite. This is because students, you're paying about half of attention, like, I don't know, it's got something about negatives and positive. And yes, most of the examples they give you, you're taking the absolute value of a negative number and it turns positive. I understand why you would think it would lead you to believe that it's opposite, but it's not. It's just how far are you away from 0? Okay? So what's the opposite of 7? The opposite of 7 is? Yeah, that does work. It flip-flops the signs. But when I take the absolute value of 7, how far is 7 away from 0? 7. It does not flip-flop the signs. However, what's the absolute value of negative 4? Okay, what's the absolute value of negative 4? Sure looks like it flip-flops the signs. But in general rule, notice both of these answers are opposite of each other, right? One's positive, one's negative. Opposites will produce opposites. Absolute values will only produce positive values, with one exception. Okay? You okay? All right, we'll see. You have 10 seconds to write the answers. Notice all of these are absolute values. 9, 8, 7. And what did I say for absolute values? Always negative, always positive. Absolute value, always negative, always positive. With one little exception. So therefore, is there anything to actually calculate here? Give me all 6 answers, Aiden.
41, 1.3, -15.
Oh, you just told me, yep. And
And 0.
what the heck is -0? It's not, it's -0, right? All right, so absolute value, it looks like there's not much work. Well, the point is that there can be math on the inside of absolute value. Okay, third and final time, absolute value does not swap signs, right? You're like, yes, it does. Look, I swapped sign. Negative, now it's positive. That's only if what you throw inside is negative. If you throw a positive number on the inside, it doesn't swap signs. The answers are always positive, one exception. Boy, it must be a pretty big exception. Do we need to do box 4 or we got this concept? All right. So we better look at the exception. All right, we said that what do you do on the inside? You simply say, how far are you away from 0? How far are you away from 0? So will this always be a positive number? I'm leading up to the one exception. Okay. Here is the exception, sort of, kind of, right? So we'll crank up the difficulty a little bit. Anybody know where this is from?
Yeah.
Right. Castle Wolfenstein, I thought. It could be German. It's the same company, though. All right. This is the exception. Everybody look up here. We said that absolute value always gives you what? A positive or negative answer?
A positive.
Okay. I'm going to cover up the first minus, or the first negative sign. What's that say now?
-4.
Well, you can see the minus on your hand. What's that say right now?
4.
Well, that's the answer, but what does it say?
-4.
It doesn't say that. What does it say?
-4.
It doesn't say that either.
The opposite of 4.
Doesn't say that either. Somebody, wow.
The opposite of
value
-4.
of 4.
What is the symbol?
Negative.
What is this symbol?
The absolute value.
Oh, so it actually says the absolute value of -4, which is,
4.
well, we didn't use this one. So this really says a couple different ways of thinking about it. We can call this symbol subtraction. We can also call it the opposite. So this is either subtract the absolute value of -4 or the opposite of the absolute value of -4. So it's a PEMDAS problem. Remember I said absolute value act like parentheses. Therefore, they are the P in PEMDAS. You need to do them first. What's the absolute value of -4?
4.
And then I toss the subtraction on it. So actually this answer is,
-4.
and what I don't want you to know or to remember is the fact that I got a negative answer. I didn't get a negative answer when I took the absolute value. I got 4. And then I had to say the opposite of 4 is -4 or subtract 4, however you want to think about it. So technically, we did get a negative answer here, but check it out from the very start. It's not the same problem. Absolute value will only give you a positive answer unless there's some other stuff on the outside of it, or to the left. Okay, who did not get that basic idea? I know I kind of stressed that a bunch. Absolute value only gives you positive, but you can't forget the other stuff. Okay. Here we go. Okay. I said we can do math with absolute value. Let's do some math. Okay. By GEMDAS, PEMDAS, what do you do first? Grouping symbols, parentheses. Absolute value acts like parentheses. What's the absolute value of 0?
0.
So this says 3 minus
0.
0. What is 3 minus 0?
3.
Here we go.
3 minus nada. 10.
By GEMDAS, we have to do grouping symbols first. Absolute values act like grouping symbols. What's the absolute value of -10?
10.
So this really
3
says,
plus 10.
okay, now we're at a pause in class. Right? We will call this the pause of understanding. Right? The pause of understanding is this: when all of a sudden you get 2 or 3 people in the class and they get it solid, all of a sudden you start hearing a pace pickup of they're yelling out the answers and everyone else is potentially, I'm not sure what's going on. It is your responsibility that if you start to get lost, you stop me. Yes, I'll ask questions, but certainly in a large class, there can be a couple people that kind of float by. If you're looking at this right now and you're like, I don't know why they're yelling out numbers, I don't know what's going on, your job is to stop me. Okay. So, do you see any grouping symbols up there? Which one? Grouping symbol means parentheses, brackets, absolute value, fraction bar, square root symbol this year. Okay, so what's the absolute value of negative 10? Okay, so erase this and write. So now what does it say? Okay, so what's your question? Are you confused? No, you're not confused. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Okay. Are there any grouping symbols? Yes, absolute value. What's the absolute value of 6? 6. Notice this negative is not on the inside, it's on the outside. So I covered this part right here first. The absolute value of 6 is 6. So this is really
14 minus 6.
yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So 14 minus 6 is 8. Got it? Okay. Maybe the toughest one, unless they're all negative. I can't put a negative here because technically we haven't gone over negative numbers yet. Absolute value of negative 8 is 8. So this is really 20 minus 8, which is 12. We good? All right. You got 4 or 6 problems. Do them, please. 6 problems. Do them, please. Who needs help? You confident you can do this by yourself? Sarah, thumbs up, thumbs down. Good job. Excellent. Yeah. Have you had this before?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know why they teach this?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because the very next thing that we will do in chapter 2 is add, subtract, multiply, and divide negative numbers. So we're going to use absolute value to explain what allows us to do adding, subtracting of positive and negative numbers. We'll later on, when we solve equations, actually solve an equation that has variables and absolute value. It's ugly, right? It's got a whole bunch of new rules, and it's just like a 2-step equation, but it involves absolute value. So that's an Algebra 1 skill. So I will teach you how to solve absolute value equations. Those are the 2 times you'll see absolute value this year. Yeah. Yeah. We good? We done? Aiden's doing absolutely nothing. So therefore, that's telling me that he's done. Yes, Aiden? Okay. Hey, VDH, you done? VDH, you done?
What is that?
I don't know. She's been putting it on her paper a lot, so I'm going to start calling her VDH. Right. Okay, cool. Chris, you done?
Yeah.
Okay, walk me through the top one. Tell me what to do. I'll do it for you. Top left. Walk me through. What do you want me to do? Oh, you're already doing the work for me. So what's the answer?
I want to say negative. No, not negative. Yeah, negative 6.
Okay. What is the absolute value of negative 4?
4.
So this is really 2 plus, which you said. Therefore, the answer is 9. Okay. Piper, what's the absolute value of 4? So this is really, which is, you said it's 12 minus 4, and I said which is, and then you said 12. 12 minus 4 is bigger or smaller than 12?
Is 12 bigger than 12?
Oh, girl.
Take a deep breath, right? We would say any number is equal to itself, right? So 12 is equal to itself. But when you subtract, you get bigger or smaller? You do get smaller. So I need a number smaller than 12, right? 12 minus 4 is 8. Okay. You got the basic idea, though. You were not hung up on the absolute value. All right. Nathan, how about the bottom one? Bottom one.
Shut up.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Shardy.
What do you got, Nathan?
I'm trying to do this. I didn't get that one.
What's the absolute value of 18?
18.
So therefore, this turns into
21.
3 plus 18, which is 21. Very good. All right, are we good?
Yeah.
All right, somebody yell out all 3 answers real quick. What do we got?
8, 6.
8, 6, 20? Yep. Very good. Hey, stop me, be brave, right? We can be as clueless as we want as long as we're brave about it.
We're allowed to eat.
No, we're not allowed to. Okay. For homework tonight, be careful. Why does it say be careful? All right, everybody stop what you're doing, look at the board. Why am I telling you to be careful? And I showed you those two examples. Something to do with your eyeballs. Would you agree that this symbol right here looks an awful lot like that symbol right there? It's kind of two little tiny little marks that are different. Be careful with brackets and absolute value. They will sneak up on you. You'll be thinking, oh, it looks like a bracket, but in fact it's absolute value, or vice versa. Hey, it looks like absolute value. No, it's brackets. Brackets and absolute value will sneak up on you, and you won't be expecting there to be absolute values. You'll be thinking it's a bracket, but it's an absolute value. So be careful. All right, those kind of sort of look alike. All right, believe it or not, guess what? That was it. That was the whole darn class. We have 10 minutes to go before lunch. Get out your homework, if you haven't already, and get started on it. Hey,
Check answers.
I know. Go over, like math. Anybody now wants me to look over your shoulder while you're doing some of this? Or like, there's no way I want you to look over my shoulder. Okay.
Wait.
Tomorrow when I say Jesus.
My mom, you were 29.
I did strike.
Wow.
It's just like
Right away.
I'm so glad you
if you have common denominators, what you do is you do times if you have
I love Jesus.
Hey, Rylan and company, what are you guys doing?
Can I have your
Rylan.
All right, Rylan, you're back to your seat. And what are we doing?
I'm just highlighting
Okay, where's your homework? Reduce.
Oh yeah.
No, what did I say? It's important. About fraction. What did I say about fractions? I said that this year, do you ever need to convert it to a decimal or mixed number? Did I say yes or no? Did I say that? But if you have a fraction, you must always reduce. But you can certainly leave any answer as a mixed, as a fully reduced fraction. All right, e-learners, I'm going to stop it right here. You guys will get the review tomorrow. So I usually don't, I'll record the going over the homework, but then I don't record the class where we go over the review sheet. So I will give you the review sheet and the answers, and that will help you prepare for the test. And remember, almost always my review sheet for the test will look nearly identical to the test. If you have any questions, send me an email.